Today's video is about American Civil War, North versus South. The American Civil War, fought from 1861 to 1865, stands as a pivotal moment in the history of the United States. This brutal and divisive conflict between the northern and southern states had profound implications for the nation's future, shaping its identity and laying the groundwork for a more united, yet still deeply scarred, country. At the heart of the American Civil War were deeply rooted economic, social, and political differences between the northern and southern states. The North, primarily industrialized, embraced a more diversified economy and a growing emphasis on urbanization. In contrast, the agrarian South relied heavily on slave labor to sustain its agrarian economy, particularly in the cultivation of cotton, tobacco, and other cash crops. The issue of slavery emerged as the most contentious factor, fueling tensions between the northern states, which were increasingly abolitionist, and the southern states, where the institution of slavery was deeply ingrained and considered essential to their way of life. The northern states, often referred to as the Union, boasted a rapidly growing industrial base. Factories, railroads, and a burgeoning population of immigrants seeking employment in urban centers characterized the North. Major cities like New York, Boston, and Philadelphia became economic and cultural hubs, fueling the North's economic prosperity. Additionally, the North had a more diverse economy that wasn't as dependent on slave labor. This economic structure contributed to the growing abolitionist sentiment, as many Northerners began to see slavery as incompatible with their vision of a modern, industrialized society. The Southern states, known as the Confederacy, were primarily agrarian. Plantations, often worked by enslaved labor, produced vast amounts of cotton and other cash crops for export. The Southern economy was deeply tied to the institution of slavery, and many in the South saw any interference with this system as a threat to their way of life. Socially, the Southern states held onto a more traditional, hierarchical structure with an agrarian aristocracy at the top. The concept of states' rights was emphasized, as Southerners believed that individual states should have the authority to make decisions independently of a strong central government. While economic and social differences were significant, it was the question of slavery that ultimately ignited the sparks of war. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 and the Compromise of 1850 attempted to maintain a balance between slave and free states, but the issue became untenable. The 1860 election of Abraham Lincoln, a staunch opponent of the spread of slavery into new territories, further escalated tensions. The Southern states, fearing that the incoming Republican administration would threaten their peculiar institution of slavery, began to secede from the Union. The Confederacy was formed in 1861, marking the beginning of a brutal and protracted conflict. The American Civil War witnessed a series of pivotal battles that shaped its outcome. Battles like Gettysburg, Antietam, and Bull Run showcased the brutality and scale of the conflict. The North, with its larger population and industrial capabilities, gradually gained the upper hand. The implementation of the Union's Anaconda Plan, a strategy to blockade southern ports and control the Mississippi River, had a crippling effect on the Confederacy's ability to sustain itself. As the war progressed, the Northern objectives shifted from preserving the Union to the abolition of slavery. In 1863, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring all slaves in Confederate-held territory to be free. This not only changed the moral character of the war but also altered the geopolitical dynamics by making it difficult for European powers to support the Confederacy. The American Civil War exacted a heavy toll on both the North and the South. The war claimed the lives of over 600,000 soldiers and countless civilians. The Southern states, devastated by the conflict, faced the challenges of Reconstruction, a period aimed at rebuilding the South and integrating the newly freed slaves into American society. The American Civil War left an indelible mark on the United States, reshaping its political, social, and economic landscape. The 13th Amendment, ratified in 1865, abolished slavery, marking a crucial step toward equality. However, the scars of the war lingered, as the country grappled with issues of racial inequality and regional tensions in the decades that followed. What were the main causes of the American Civil War between the North and the South? The American Civil War was primarily fueled by deep-seated economic, social, and political differences between the northern and southern states. The contentious issue of slavery, with the North becoming increasingly abolitionist while the South depended heavily on slave labor, was a major catalyst for the conflict. The struggle over states' rights and the economic disparities between the industrialized North and agrarian South also played crucial roles in sparking the war. How did the economies of the northern and southern states differ during the Civil War? The northern states, known as the Union, were industrialized and had a diversified economy that was less reliant on slave labor. Factories, railroads, and a growing urban population characterized the North. In contrast, the southern states, or the Confederacy, were agrarian, relying heavily on plantations and slave labor for the production of cash crops like cotton and tobacco. The economic disparity contributed to the broader tensions between the North and the South. What role did slavery play in the outbreak of the Civil War? Slavery was a central and divisive issue that fueled the American Civil War. The North, increasingly abolitionist, sought to restrict the spread of slavery into new territories, while the southern states, where slavery was deeply ingrained in the agrarian economy and social structure, perceived any interference as a threat to their way of life. The election of Abraham Lincoln, who opposed the expansion of slavery, further intensified Southern fears and led to secession. How did key battles and strategies shape the outcome of the Civil War? Key battles such as Gettysburg, Antietam, and Bull Run played pivotal roles in shaping the outcome of the Civil War. The North's larger population and industrial capabilities gave it an advantage, and the Union's implementation of the Anaconda Plan, which included blockading southern ports and controlling the Mississippi River, had a crippling effect on the Confederacy. These military strategies, coupled with the Emancipation Proclamation and the shifting objectives of the North, ultimately contributed to the Union's victory. What were the long-term effects and legacies of the American Civil War? The American Civil War had profound and lasting effects on the United States. The war resulted in the abolition of slavery with the ratification of the 13th Amendment in 1865. However, the country faced the challenges of Reconstruction, attempting to rebuild the South and integrate newly freed slaves into society. The war's legacy includes enduring racial and regional tensions, shaping the nation's ongoing struggle for equality and unity. The scars of the Civil War continue to influence American society and politics to this day. Like the video and remember to subscribe to our channel.